Alright. This is my second time recording this. But hello everybody, it's me, Canner, and welcome to the January 2024 Rush Duel Links meta recap. That's right. This is the meta recap for Rush Duel Links. And by meta recap, I mean what has been progressing on through the month of January, whether it be from, well, within the last 4 weeks, I guess. So it's a little bit of January is missing, but oops. And a little bit of February is included here, but that's not the point. So we are here to kind of evaluate the changes in the format, how the format has been there. One thing to note, this is not necessarily representative of the larger metagame. As things pop up, I might give my opinions / interpretations. That's kind of what this is. This is just me interpreting data. This does not mean I am correct, so keep that in mind. One thing I do want to mention is this will have a slide for King of Games decks. This will have a slide for tournament results. This will have legends, legend monsters, legend spells, legend trap, singular, there's only one. And I'm sure some of you might know, but this is inspired by... Give it a moment here. There we go. The way that I'm displaying the data is credited to ANerdNamedBt, who is linked in the description. I really love the way that they display the data and information, so I wanted to make informative content like that for the Duel Links side of things. So that's kind of what we are doing here. So I mentioned King of Games decks. We're starting off with that. Let's take a look. Might actually take a little bit to load, so I guess I might as well just talk. Do my transitions. There we go. King of Games decks. We've got 25 Light Machine, 24 Aggro, 17 Spellcaster, 15 Royal Rebel, 8 Bubble Era or Aqua, whatever you want to call it, 7 Arise Dragons, 7 Dragons, and 13 other. One big thing to note about the representations here and the pie charts. They do not include different variations of decks. This is just going off of the descriptions that are on Duel Links meta. The breakdowns there. The way that I compiled the data was I went on, clicked tournaments, and clicked King of Games. That's what I had, and then I combined them together. King of Games and tournament decks, I did not tally them up all together, but you can, I'm sure you can do that here. Anything in tournament decks that's under 7 that's not represented on here. Whatever. There's stuff that's missing from that, but whatever. So, Light Machine has been very, very popular on the King of Games ladder, it looks like. Not so popular that the best deck in the room, Aggro, isn't still, you know, the second most represented deck in this area. But the reason Light Machine is the most popular... oh, I completely forgot to mention this. Unlike ANerdNamedBt, I'm not doing deck lists for this one. Starting with the February recap, we will be doing deck lists, unless I'm late like I am with this one. So, yeah, this is a Light Machine comes from a structure deck, and not only just from a structure deck, but an incredibly powerful one at that. Light Machine is probably the best structure deck we have ever, well, not probably, it honestly just is the best structure deck that we have ever seen within Rush Duel Links. And, well, in terms of the deck actually breaking into meta success, but the actual best structure deck is the one we just got with Dark Magician, because it adds so much incredible stuff, and it lets you get like all of the engines for dirt cheap. and good cards alongside all of that. But we have Light Machine. Next up, we have Aggro. Aggro has kind of been the name of the game for a very long time, and if you are a player of Rush Duel Links, this is not really a surprise to you. This deck has been not only around since the start of this format back in, I believe it was mid-December when the ban list took effect, but we've had aggro decks kind of around the format forever. Like, they have always been around the format, and that's just kind of something we have to, you know, come to terms with, but that's fine. Aggro is a very popular deck for good reason. There are a ton of different variants, and they are all very powerful and do very strong plays. Then we have 17 Spellcaster. Spellcaster just got new support this month within the... I can't tell you the name of the structure deck off the top of my head. I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared enough for that. But the newest structure deck that just released, they did get support through that. And it has kind of helped shore up some of the issues that this deck was having in terms of its, you know, competitiveness. It had some issues, and thankfully those are starting to be resolved with the release of the structure. They also now have Curtain of Sparks, which is just a better version of the barrier. If you have a Spellcaster in Grave, minus 500 attack on your opponent when they are declaring an attack. Next up, very close to Spellcaster, we have Royal Rebel. This includes the Red Eyes build of the deck. Not really a shock that this deck is also still very high up. It is very explosive and very good at dealing with boards, especially if you are committing to low investment boards with, say, one Tribute. If you have one Tribute, very often heavy metal being dropped is just going to spell the end of the game, and you will lose the duel. But that's not always the case, so keep that in mind. After Royal Rebel, we have the Aqua decks. Mimi got some new cards. Aqua is getting a little bit better from that. Aqua, largely, from what I have seen, still kind of this aggro style of deck that it has been for a while. But that's completely fine. Then we have Arias Dragons. This deck has fallen off quite a bit in terms of popularity, as it seems, but I mean, there's a lot of new stuff. Like Light Machine, it's a new toy, but it's also cheaper. So I think that's probably a reason why this is obviously above this. Not to mention aggro, you're kind of clashing with there's going to be opportunities, and that's not what I wanted to say. The best opportunity to play Ancient Arise Dragon is actually in aggro decks. Like, it's better in aggro than it is in its own deck, which is unfortunate, but you know, that's just kind of how it goes. 3K Beat Stick is incredible when you have the resources to supplement it 100% of the time. Sometimes, okay, scratch that. I'm kind of stupid. I think it's better in its actual deck. It's just going to be more consistent in aggro. Because you can get the pop in its own deck, which is cool. Then we have Dragons. This is every other dragon build. And yeah, it's not too much of a shock there. Format looking about what we would expect. Let's take a look at the tournament decks. And this is definitely just more of what I would expect coming from the format, looking at a lot of the tournament results as they drop. We have Summon Skull, and why did I say Summon Skull? We have aggro. Sorry, I'm tired. I've been doing homework all day today. We have aggro at 15 copies. Royal Rebel at 6 copies. Light Machine at 5. Spellcaster at 4. Dragon at 3. Yami Ruler at 3. One of the Bubble Era Aqua stuff. And then one Psychic. Again, I just clicked on tournaments. Duel Links met up. That's just how we did it. It might be out of date now. I'm not sure. I couldn't tell you. Yeah, I did this all last night. So, again, kind of looking, if you remember back to the King of Games, how this was the second most represented deck, it is the most represented deck out of everything in tournament by over double. It is over double Royal Rebel. It's actually 2.5 times the amount of Royal Rebel that was in the pool, 3 times the amount of Light Machine. So this is very, 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 very clearly the deck slash... Okay, so here's the thing. Aggro is a ton of different variants. So ultimately, these representations look closer. But just know aggro. We can just call it aggro, because that's the easiest way. I'm not going to have 30 different decks on here unless we get to a point where there are 30 different decks competing in contention, not 30 different variants, because this doesn't really account for variants either. But it's not really a shock that aggro is the top dog in terms of representation, and I think this does actually transfer into quality of the deck and the actual strength of it. I think this is for sure the best deck in the room, and it doesn't feel like there's much contention for this being the best deck. I think the second best deck and the third best deck and the fourth best deck are a little bit farther behind. But, I mean, this format, as you can tell, there's a lot of different decks. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, that's 8 different decks. Yeah, we have 8 different decks that have topped throughout this duration. Doesn't mean that these are the only decks that have topped. Keep that in mind. But this is throughout this duration and what was classified by Duel Links meta and where they were put. But yeah, so tournament decks are looking pretty standard. I mean, this isn't surprising. And then let's take a look here really quickly at King of Games and tournament decks. Yeah, very clearly aggro is still the best thing there. Then we have Light Machine, then we have Royal Rebel, Spellcaster, and then a bunch of smaller quantities here, and then other. So, like in ANerdNamedBt's videos, they do breakdowns of what the legend cards are looking like in the format, and I wanted to do that as well. Let's take a look. Yeah, this is, does this look like a shock to anyone? So the one thing that I was shocked about was Barrel Dragon. I did not expect Barrel Dragon to be as low as it was relative to Summon Skull. I thought I've seen plenty of Barrel Dragon, but Summon Skull is ultimately more consistent, it is appearing. So we have here Summon Skull at 51, Barrel Dragon at 21, Dark Magician at 20, Red Eyes Black Dragon at 17, Magician's Valkyria at 6, and the card that has not seen a single deck list on Duel Links meta, Vorse Raider. This is a new card that has come out for February, so technically it probably shouldn't be on this list, but by the time when I was making it, it was out, so that's kind of why I did that. But it is an ultra rare PvP ticket reward, so we'll see if any decks start playing Vorse Raider, but I would guess not. Again, these lower numbers, these lower ones aren't super surprising. Red Eyes still being a super popular thing. This is because of those Red Eyes variants. Next up, we have our 2 legend spells. 66 Shield and Sword and 55 Monster Reincarnation. I won't lie. At first, this shocked me. I did not expect that we were going to be in a format where Shield and Sword was more popular. But it's supposed to make sense. It's not like it's a crazy thing to have seen there. It's a good utility piece to actually clearing your opponent's boards, and Monster Reincarnation is good to help supplement your board states when you're starting your plays, but I don't necessarily know if it's as good as something that's going to help destroy and break down, well, not destroy literally, but help break down your opponent's boards compared to helping supplement your own boards. It's feeling very, very, very much that this side of things, affecting your opponent, is always going to be better than affecting yourself. But this could change. This could change. I'm not going to say it won't. And then we have the Legend Traps. By the way, before we get into the Legend Traps, the way that I found this information was by searching the card name in the top decks section on Duel Links Meta. Remember, this isn't reflexive of the entire player base. But next up, we have our Legend Trap, and it is Widespread Ruin. It's the only one in the format right now. You gotta bear with me. 146 Widespread Ruins are kind of lurking around there, which is less than the amount of decks that we had, which I've seen no one not playing this, so we'll just assume every deck is playing Widespread Ruin, because I'm sure that's true. Every deck is playing Widespread Ruin. Yeah, this card is busted. It's going to be busted. It's just going to keep being incredible. Now let's go to the tier list. So, this tier list was made by my evaluations of the format, and specifically the data that we presented here. So no other decks were represented except for Dark Magician exactly, because Magician's Shuffle is actually a real deck. But I have it at Rogue right now. I think aggro, best deck in the room. Tier 2, Light Machine, Spellcaster, and Heavy Metal. Spellcaster and Heavy Metal / Royal Rabble, I think these two are interchangeable. I'm not really too confident on that. I'm confident in my placings on tier 3, but the actual order I'm not super confident in. I think Dragons, specifically Dragonic Resonance, is very powerful. This is an extremely powerful, extremely competent deck, even though it is less popular. The data doesn't really suggest it being a top deck right now, but we will definitely have to revisit this, because I think this is the deck that could honestly be changing drastically. Then we have Arise Dragons, which is pretty standard. I think it's relative to Dragonic Resonance. I think Dragonic Resonance is better, so I did do it like this. And then Yami Ruler, which I think is worse than Ancient Arise Arise Dragons. I think the Aqua decks are in Rogue. The reason for this is Aqua... I wanted to define this as not the aggro deck, as just Aqua. Any aggro deck kind of is clumped with this. I think if I wanted to rank every aggro deck, I would be here a lot longer, and I don't want to rank every aggro deck. I just kind of wanted to rank what was relevant through our tier list. And then Psychic is non-meta. Magician's Shuffle, I think, is Rogue. I think it's interesting. I need to be convinced of it a little bit more. I am a big fan of the deck. I love playing it, but I don't think it's particularly competitive if the environment is a lot of aggro, if it's a lot of Light Machine, if it's a lot of Spellcaster. There's a lot of stuff that just goes into it. It probably is higher than Rogue. Admittedly, it's probably like a tier 3, maybe tier 2 strategy, but if it's tier 2, I would say Dragonic Resonance is probably tier 2. So, yeah. So that's it. That's it for this one. We'll be back in February. We'll bring sample deck lists. This video is ending up worse than I wanted it to. It's worse than the original, but I needed to re-record it because the original was bad. The music was way too loud. If the music's way too loud on this one, I apologize, but I'm not doing it again. Anyways, thank you for watching, and once again, shout out to ANerdNamedBt for making this style of content that I'm kind of leeching off of. I'm not going to hide it. This is leeching. But thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video next week. Goodbye.